they're emotionally immature because they haven't dealt with things in their childhood in order to show up in an emotionally mature way. Hello, truth tellers. Welcome back to the ADHD Scapegoat Podcast. I'm Angie.
I'm Jeremy. If you've ever been discarded, silenced, or treated like your voice didn't matter, this one's for you. Today, we're going to discuss emotional immaturity, projection, dehumanization, and how ADHDers are especially vulnerable to this dynamic within dysfunctional families.
Right. So it all comes down to emotional immaturity. And I'll start with introducing this book. It's Lindsay C. Gibson. We'll put it in the show notes. But it's called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, How to Heal from Distant, Rejecting, and Self-Involved Parents. In it, she discusses, so much, but the 4 types of quote-unquote difficult parents and how different children react to these parents. And her goal in the book is to basically have you understand the reality of what's going on, how to recognize these behavior patterns so that you can kind of heal the wounds that, your parents may have created. And a lot of times we've talked about it before where, if this is all you've ever known, which makes it the complex trauma, it started from birth, then it's really hard to recognize. Like, you really do need to educate yourself. That's why we preach awareness and understanding and, finding those words just so you can put words to certain things to allow yourself to work through it. But if you never name it, you never bring it to the surface, you aren't even aware it's happening, you can't heal from it. And that's what this book does. She talks about how immature adults react from ego and not empathy. They lack emotional regulation and cannot tolerate difference or discomfort. And they're emotionally immature because they haven't dealt with things in their childhood in order to show up in an emotionally mature way. They're basically still responding from that childlike survival state that they were in when they were traumatized, right?
Right.
So how this affects them in their parenting is their children become these little containers for their unprocessed emotions. And this is how we get these generational patterns of toxic behaviors and toxic cycles that people just get stuck in. And Lindsay says, I bookmarked page. So emotionally immature parents don't know how to validate their child's feelings and instincts. Without this validation, children learn to give in to what others seem sure about. As adults, they may deny their instincts to the point where they acquiesce to relationships they don't really want. They may then believe it's up to them to make the relationship work. They may rationalize why they have to try so hard in the relationship as though it were normal to struggle daily to get along with your mate. While effort is needed to maintain communication and connection in a relationship, it shouldn't feel like constant, unrewarding work.
That's especially true in your family situation. We don't have to get into the details, but with your family member who is in an emotionally abusive or at least verbally abusive relationship that we've witnessed, that rings especially true where we've talked about that is probably comforting to that person because that's the type of environment, like your mom didn't deal with her stuff, pass that down. The child wasn't validated, and so that translated into this abusive relationship where we've literally gotten the excuse that I'm this age, I don't think, what am I supposed to do? Start over and find love again? So the
Right.
talking themselves into it, and then, excuse me, oh, well, this person needs me. And that's part of the just general abuse of like, you can't leave me. Who's going to take care of me? You're the only one who understands me type, that manipulation.
Right.
But, this person talking themselves into this relationship of it'll get better. I can fix it. That's the type of environment that you guys as kids grew up in,
right.
of like watching your mom, try to
right.
make it better with your dad, and that was passed down. Like it's eerie to read stuff like this.
Right, I know.
Because it's like, oh, wait.
Yeah, it's like
other people.
She's inside. She saw everything.
It's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, she even like on the next page. I just clipped this from. She shares different people's stories throughout the book, and in this sentence she said, since childhood, she says this girl's name had been trained to think that her natural desire to feel special and loved was selfish. So, if you're out there seeking real love, and you think that you don't deserve it, it's selfish for you to get that, which has been projected at me over and over and over. Like, these are messages that, how can you not internalize it, right?
Right.
This is like where these things come from. There's a couple more that are really good too. So, she says their parents may technically be present, but they offer little help, protection, or comfort. So no child can deal with that. They just learn to cling to whatever emotional scraps they get, because any connection is better than none at all. And I mean, I could read that whole book. It's so good. But for emotionally immature families, that starts with the parents, a neurodivergent child with emotional honesty is terrifying to them. The real reason your family discards you, dismisses you, dehumanizes you is because you saw the truth and they're desperate to hide it.
Right.
So you're the problem.
Right. Instead of support, you got shame. Instead of being understood, you were labeled dramatic,
right.
selfish, or manipulative, when none of that was ever true, obviously.
Right. Right. It's a lot.
It is a lot. So now we're going to talk about the dehumanization of the scapegoat. ADHDers are often the only ones in a toxic family who can't pretend everything's fine.
Right. And I remember hearing Dr. Sherry talked about her before, her book, and I love all of her stuff, but when she did a podcast episode about dehumanization, and it really just like hearing that word, when I first heard her say it, it hit different, and I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what it is. Like, I am nothing to them. They take away the fact that I'm a human being with feelings and emotions and needs, not needy, needs. And that emotional honesty will make the scapegoat, the target, to be dehumanized. Like, suddenly they're being punished for telling the truth that everyone else is denying, even though everyone else sees it. They're all denying it. And their denial becomes this standard against which your reality was judged as a kid, and now even.
Right. The scapegoat is targeted because the scapegoat disrupts the false family narrative.
Yeah.
They refuse to lie, conform, or pretend. Their emotional truth threatens the family's emotional denial.
Right. And for a long time, you witnessed this too. I just genuinely was like, they must just not understand. Like, these things that they're doing, they don't understand that it's impact. Because if they knew that it impacted me or that they were harming me, they wouldn't do it. They would make another choice. They don't realize this. And so, I mean, I over-explained till I was blue in the face. And some of the tactics, like finally opening up and seeing the reality of what I went through and learning about it, becoming aware, understanding, really diving deep into the healing work and seeing the patterns, not just, and actually spelling them out, writing them out, things like that, so that I could see it clearly. It was like my own scaffolding to move me forward in my healing. And it doesn't stop. My healing always continues. But some of the dehumanization tactics I always kind of thought were, just normal kind of bullying. Like I always said they were picking on me. They always picked on me. And I minimized it to picking on me for my whole life until like 5 years ago. Instead
of calling it abuse.
Right.
Right.
And so when it's brought to our attention that, you never called it abuse before, now all of a sudden your childhood was traumatic, these statements coming from our parents was like, well, yeah, because it's all we ever knew. Now we actually understand what was going on.
Which is just really, all of there's arguments like that for everything.
Right.
Always from the people who want to minimize and judge and keep people down, right? Like, oh, now everyone's autistic. Now everyone has ADHD or whatever. Right. It's like, we didn't call it that when I was a kid, or we never had any of this when I was a kid.
Yeah, because we learn, we evolve, we grow.
Right. There was never a name for it.
Right.
Or there was never a true diagnosis, or there's been developments.
Shocking.
And it's like, why is that the go-to? And it really is like when, you said, well, they must just not understand. Even if they did understand that it was harming you, like in some way they must have known, calling you Angie Weiner, or like, oh, here we go, she's going to be dramatic or whatever, saying those things. They must have known psychologically, like inside they knew that it harmed you, but they could always explain it away with, oh, you're being too sensitive, or we're just joking, and minimize it.
It's always deflect. Always.
To deflect, right.
Yeah. So here's some of the tactics that they use. The silent treatment. It's used as control. So they're withholding love or connection. And it's the intention behind the silence. They're willingly withholding love or attention or contact or, if there's affection involved, all of it, until you do exactly what they want you to do. And that's emotional abuse. So saying that you're not abusive or that there isn't trauma and you're participating in doing these things, you need to reflect and call it what it is. And look past the title and how that, whatever the name, if emotional abuse makes you feel shame, why does it make you feel shame? Look at that. Because that's what it is. It's the complete opposite of having to go no contact. No contact is used with the intention to protect yourself from harm, not to control anyone else, because you can't do that. But it's to be back in control of yourself rather than allow yourself to be harmed by others. And that's the whole thing, like the issue with no contact and saying it's just like a silent treatment is the people that are on the receiving end of no contact. They want control. They don't want you to have control. And you setting a boundary and saying, no, I'm in control of me. You're in control of you. We're the bad guys. Because we're saying everyone is in control of themselves. Hello? Like, wake up.
Well, you took their power away.
It's so obvious. Another thing they do is discarding. So that's part of this dehumanization. You're only included when it's convenient or useful. They need you. Like an example for me, when I was in high school, it would be like, oh, we're at this gathering and, oh, Angie, come tell your giving blood story. Because I donated blood and passed out 3 times, threw up twice when I was like 18. It was a mess. And it is a really funny story because I went down to give blood at like the first time of the day, and I wasn't scared of needles at that point. It was like 9:30 was like the earliest one. I was like, I want to set that up so that I'm not like feeling faint by practice time, whatever. And every period in high school, your teacher checks on, okay, who's donating blood right now and when they're going to return to class and stuff. And all the teachers kept saying, where's Angie? Where's Angie? And I was still down in the other half of the cafeteria where they were doing the donating because I kept passing out and then throwing up. And so I was literally there the whole school day. It was embarrassing in the moment and funny afterward, but it's like this story that, like, of course I told with a spin to make it funnier so it wasn't traumatizing, but also like once I was done with that story I was like poo-pooed away, but I would be called in, so I would feel like really included, and then they would discard me and be like, okay, go away, you're too much now, we don't need you anymore for the story, so move along. And another thing they do is erasure. Like, so they basically don't ask for your side of the story. They rewrite history with their own narrative. So that creative narrative becomes the accusations that they put on you. And so there's no truth or actual things like I said or did. That was just put on me, right? So when that happens, they're just basically rewriting your intentions, your feelings, they'll just straight up make up lies, and just erase anything that you could have provided if they would have asked you for your side of the story, or if they just would have cared to understand your side, right?
Right.
Another thing they do is projection. Oh my God, the projection. Like, understanding projection was such an aha moment for me. Like, I just would be like, why are you even saying that? Like, you're just making stuff up. And then looking deeper and understanding what it was like, oh, so they're accusing me of being manipulative, selfish, and dramatic when that's actually what they're doing. Huh. How am I being manipulative? Selfish? How am I being dramatic? Like, is it I'm being dramatic, or is this just a serious situation that you don't want to face?
Right. I would say being dramatic is calling a family meeting 2 weeks before a wedding happens.
1 week.
1 week before a wedding happens, to try to make everyone think that they had a revelation, and get everyone on their side, say that they are now on your side, and then perform the wedding ceremony a week later.
Right.
That seems like drama queen material to me.
Right.
But
yeah, I agree. Another thing they do is they assume malice. And so from being a kid, interpreting your ADHD symptoms or behaviors like forgetting, interrupting, not being able to sit still as like intentional harm. And like my justice sensitivity and intuition were used to blame me for meddling or being needy now, right? So all of the things that, they try to project that your ADHD is an excuse are basically just them seeing these positive qualities in you, or these flaws, natural flaws. Everyone has flaws. No one is perfect. But your flaws are daily struggles due to your ADHD brain. So it's easier for them to point out, over and over and over and over and over and make you out to be the one who is quote unquote bad. And then another tactic is they don't leave you any room for your humanity. So when you cry, you're too sensitive. When you set a boundary, you're difficult, or you're attacking them by setting a boundary. And any natural, like, human reaction you have to being mistreated will be minimized, ignored, or flipped back on you like you're the problem for reacting to it all. You're expected to tolerate disrespect with a smile, like perform emotional labor for the people hurting you, and shrink yourself down to keep them happy. Because in their world, your feelings don't exist. You don't exist. Not as a full human being. Just as a scapegoat, a prop, a reflection of their own need to control, shame, and silence someone. They need a discard person so that they don't have to carry it. But there's a truth that they never wanted you to believe, and that is that your voice matters, your boundaries are valid, and your humanity was never the problem. It was always a threat to their power.
When someone can't handle their own emotions, they'll do anything to avoid looking inward, and that includes turning you into the villain.
Right.
For ADHDers, this kind of projection is especially damaging because it distorts your sense of self before you even get a chance to know who you are.
Right.
The labels they cast upon you reflected their own inner turmoil, not your truth. And it's the message you're receiving from these people that you believe are supposed to love you the most.
Yeah.
You've said that
over and
over.
Right. You're selfish. You're manipulative. You're attacking me. No. I was expressing a need. I was being human, and they couldn't handle it. So their discomfort with my vulnerability would turn into this measure of my supposed flaws. But I was opening up and being honest, and I assumed that they wanted that connection as well, and they would do the same. And I don't know why I always had this just innate, natural want to share, and I wanted people to share back, even when it was, closed off and I was discarded. But
well, it's your beautiful ADHD mind,
right?
You're curious. Right. You've learned something. You want to share it. You have an idea. You want to share it. I mean, that's
right.
That's the best part about.
It's this energy that you can't remove.
Exactly.
And if you've experienced this like I have, or something similar, I'm betting, just like me, you wish you could go back and like unhear all of these lies that they told you about yourself too, because once you understand it and you see how damaging it is and how you've had to survive it for so long, it really is so much work to unlearn and to not have, throughout your healing, have these things pop up from time to time.
Right. What does this do to the ADHD scapegoat? For ADHDers, this is extra damaging. Imagine being punished, not for doing something wrong, but for existing in a way they didn't understand.
Right. And that's a daily reality for ADHD scapegoats raised by emotionally immature parents. They didn't just misunderstand me like I thought. They rewrote who I was and made me believe that I was the dangerous one. And the truth of who you are gets buried beneath the weight of these projections from them. They labeled me this, and I had to become that. I had to fall in line. And when you have ADHD, you're already masking to survive. Your emotional dysregulation is getting weaponized against you, outside of the home as well as inside. You're told you're the problem for reacting to the pain they are causing. And then this chronic invalidation leads to poor self-esteem, people-pleasing, perfectionism, delayed diagnosis probably, or delayed self-awareness. You have a hard time building your self-awareness. And then, of course, attraction to toxic relationships because it's familiar, whether it's friendships, whether it's work relationships, whether it's a partnership. Everything, because this is all you've ever known, gets affected. It's all you know. And the trauma of this intentional misinterpretation, because that's what it is. They didn't just misunderstand. You can't just explain it away. They are intentionally misinterpreting who you are. When your intentions are good, but you're treated like you're dangerous or bad, like you try to express a need, and they spin it as you're attacking them. Like, in my conversation, with my mom, trying to get her to understand how I was feeling and information that I had found out that I felt was very important, it's very serious, and wanted to share. I was trying to express that I needed her to understand the reality of the situation, even though it's not something we wish was the reality. And she spun it into this, me attacking her for not seeing these things and me making her feel like she was a terrible mother. And I was like, huh? Where did that even come from? I wasn't saying that at all. I wanted you to understand what I knew and what I was experiencing, just to understand. And it didn't even make any sense. So over time, when you are continually, that's just one example, but over time you're continually hearing this message, you start to internalize these false narratives because it's so constant. And you replay, like, I have always practiced self-awareness. Like, I look back, if someone says I did something that hurt them or I did something, they think I did something, whatever, I stop and go, did I do that? Yeah. Could I have said that differently? How could I have approached that? Maybe I did. Maybe I wasn't thinking about that. I'll play it every which way. That's another part of my ADHD brain. I will go every avenue and not stop until I find it. But the fact that I can self-reflect, they're playing it against me. They know I'm going to self-reflect. They know I care. So if they can put it back on me, they know I'll take it. I'll internalize it. I'll do something about it. Because if I can do something about it, then there's more hope that I can change it. But they know I can't because they're purposefully doing this.
Right. You said something earlier that, and you kind of just touched on it a little bit with the example with your mom. You said that your healing or the work that you're doing is ongoing.
Right.
You're never done. You don't just read the 5 books and then you've graduated
right.
therapy and you're done, right? It's ongoing.
Right.
Other things come up. When you're trying to fix one problem, that triggers something else, and so
right.
you're kind of just constantly bouncing around. That does sound like a lot of work. It can feel overwhelming when you decide, okay, I want to understand this better.
Right.
I want to heal from these things. It can seem like a daunting task,
sure.
especially for someone your mom's age who has had a lifetime of things with generational trauma. And then, her adult life. And,
right.
and it can seem like a daunting thing. But you have to start somewhere. And it's just that unwillingness to even try it. I mean,
right.
Granted, when she and your dad were going through their divorce, she did go to therapy. However many times,
right.
whether it was once or a dozen times or however many, she did make that effort for that thing. But now it's something bigger that has stemmed from that situation. And there's just zero willingness to even try again. And that's the really...
Well, I think
That's the part that's really frustrating for me.
Right.
Because...
But we don't know if she's trying therapy or any of that. Like, we don't know because of not in contact. But I do know the effort with trying, especially with me and my older sister, like, stating boundaries. And since we're lumped together as one person, that's another dehumanizing thing, is like everything that I say or everything that my older sister says, we're both saying it, and we're both, it's nuts, this narrative. But the fact that, like, they are aware of what needs to be done in order to mend, and there is zero effort
right
towards their children. Zero.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part.
Yeah.
It's like, why? What's the alternative? I feel like I've said this exact thing before, because again, like, that's the scenario I play over and over.
Well, yeah, because I
head.
think I could never discard my child. I could never treat them like they don't exist, like they're worthless. That's what it is.
Right. I mean, I don't think they're listening or watching this, but if you want to borrow the books, we have a whole shelf, and they help, and it's easy. It's like you could read a book in a weekend, especially if you're retired, right? Like it's so, like, just...
I think it's not that it's not hard to make those first steps and just say, I don't know what to do. It's the actual, they have to look in the mirror, and they can't remove the shame of making a mistake or being, quote unquote, wrong about something in their minds, which is
ego,
right? That's where this all stems from.
But I don't know, maybe the fear is that we would hold them accountable in that shame, right? Like,
we'll hold them accountable for the behaviors and the things that were done, and we're not just going to, shove everything under the rug and move along like nothing happened, because I
100%.
have zero trust.
Right. But what I'm saying is, it's not as though we would dwell on that. We would be proud of them for starting the healing journey.
Right.
And would open it up to new conversations.
Right. And the longer it goes where I'm still discarded, not even treated like a human being or that I exist, makes it creep into unforgivable territory where
Sure.
there's been so much done and you're refusing to attempt to heal. You might not have any more time. And that's a choice that you're making.
Right.
So, anyways, we'll move on.
Let's break the spell. Rehumanizing yourself. What are some strategies for healing?
So, you have to name what happened. And I know this is where we talk about, the name emotionally immature parents. I'm emotionally immature. The immediate ego defensiveness. I'm not even going to listen to that podcast because it says emotionally immature parents. How rude, how disrespectful. No, name it. I was emotionally immature 5 years ago with all of this family stuff. Because I still thought I needed to be the one to mend the fence. I needed to be the one to cave. I was so enmeshed in that family pattern that I still acquiesced in order to still have a family. So name it. They didn't see me. They projected this scapegoat role onto me. So the most dangerous lie that this emotionally immature parent tells is that you were the one who couldn't be loved until you fixed yourself. You have to fix what's wrong with you. But the truth is, they didn't know how to love someone. They don't know how to love someone who challenges their comfort zone. And your ADHD symptoms made you the perfect scapegoat because they happen daily. Because you have a difference. And the love you deserved was withheld because of who you were, or not because of who you were, sorry, but because of who they couldn't be. So they can't be this. They can't be vulnerable. So your vulnerability is a problem. They can't be honest with themselves. So your honesty is a problem. They can't listen to their intuition. But you can. So you're the problem. Mm-hmm. You need to also separate their story from your truth. And the hard truth is that some people will erase your humanity just to protect their illusion of being a good parent or being a good person. They want, like I said, if you make a mistake, they're carrying this shame instead of being like, oh, it was a mistake, I'm still a good parent. No, they didn't make a mistake, and that's how they're a good parent. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's not reality. It's not a human experience.
Well, that was your dad's perfectionism.
Right.
Growing up, you don't make mistakes.
No.
Get 100 on your test, win the race, be early.
All of it was you do it and you do it this way or else it's wrong. And ADHDers are often the scapegoats because we see too much. We feel too deeply. We refuse to play pretend. So if you're discarded, gaslit, or misinterpreted your whole life, it's not a coincidence. This is part of their story. Their need to maintain control demanded the silencing of your authentic experience. You need to get back to what you authentically experienced without even, it's not like you're not acknowledging, because we've talked about that. I talked about it when Val was on here, about we acknowledge that our parents went through some stuff and we don't even know because they don't talk about it. And to know that we have empathy for the things that they went through, and it also does not excuse how they've treated us. Just like this outside person, we can acknowledge that he's been through some stuff. Mm-hmm. That does not excuse threatening to kill everyone in our family, right? So their need to maintain this control silenced you to even look at your authentic experience. You shut that out. So you need to challenge the idea that their silence from you, them giving you the silent treatment, them using all these tactics on you was your fault. You need to look at the reality of where this is coming from. And you need to reconnect with your internal voice through that. And you reconnect with your internal voice by journaling, by getting coaching, by working through these things in therapy. It's really, really hard to get back to an intuition that is constantly told a different story. So, yes, therapy helps bring stuff out. Coaching really helps bring stuff out. Journaling, I didn't journal feelings. I think I've mentioned this before, but I didn't journal feelings. I literally journaled like I was a freaking newspaper reporter.
Right.
Just here's the facts, here's the facts, here's the facts. And then it was like, wait. But how did you feel about that? My feelings? That's enough. They silenced my right to my own feelings. I had to get back to that. You also need to surround yourself with safe people who reflect your true self back to you. Being in a healthy relationship with you, Jer, or like having friends or actually building a healthy relationship with two of my siblings, like things like that. Also, while removing yourself from toxic people and seeing clearly, because once you're aware, once you understand, you see these patterns so clearly you can't unsee them. They can't discard you. You don't want to be around them. So their discard is like a gift if they actually leave you alone. But they always do a smear campaign if they're anything like what we're dealing with. But surround yourself with those safe people and remove the unsafe people. You have to do that. You have to step out and breathe air that is not toxic. You also need to practice responding to gaslighting thoughts. I remember the first time I did this, and at first it was like kind of weird. Like, wait, is this true? Like, I would just pause and be like, why are they saying that to me? I never said that. That never happened. Wait, is this true? Or is that just them telling me what they want me to think? And I had to pause and I had to journal it because I needed to come back to it. The whole point of abusive people and abusive tactics is to cause confusion so you question yourself. They gaslight you so that you can take the blame, so that you can make yourself go crazy, so they can point at you and say, she's crazy. It's all part of their plan. It's all part of how they survive. It's a part of what they need to do because they can't show up like you.
And when you say part of their plan, too, I think in contextualizing it like that makes it sound like they're literally sitting around at night drawing out these plans. I think it's just so ingrained in them that they just know the next thing. They do it with it's instinct.
Right. Well, I think it starts reflex. As like I need to do something to protect my ego. Yes. I do it. I see it works. Yes. I'm going to keep doing that.
Yeah. And then it just becomes a habit, and it's like
it's who they are.
It just becomes who they are.
Right.
But it is, yes, it's part of their plan. It really is a plan that they did that, years ago.
Right.
And that's just who they became.
Well, and if you look at like when you're practicing responding to like gaslighting things that are, when they're gaslighting you and these thoughts come up, look at the situation in which like, did you just ask them a question and now all of a sudden they're turning it back on you and asking you something that you did just to deflect so that you're not even getting an answer or an actual response. They're deflecting. They're pointing in a different direction. They're trying to make you think you're crazy. They're not necessarily telling you, no, I didn't do that or whatever. They're just pointing all over the place to get you to look somewhere else because they don't know what to do anymore.
Right.
So when you're getting this gaslighting, if you actually within your reflection to say, is this true? I need to work through this because that doesn't feel right. Also look at, when did they start gaslighting me? What happened right before that? And you'll really quickly start to pick up the pattern to the point where you could be, if you have to have a conversation with these awful people, you will do it and go, oh, I know what's coming next. Here comes the gaslighting. Oh, that's going to come because they can't answer this.
Right.
And it becomes like, now all of a sudden you're empowered. You're not completely dysregulated and you're not like, down and out and feeling sad. You're literally like, oh my God, this was so obvious. I saw it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I meant when you read that passage from the book at the beginning of this episode. It is eerie when you get into some of that stuff, but it also makes it laughable too, because you say like, that's textbook abuse. It's because people have literally written about it for, decades or longer.
Yeah.
This is exactly what they're going to do. And then they do it. And it's just like, it's funny when you see it. Like I think you can spin it as kind of funny. Like, oh my God, this is so obvious.
Well, that's why they panic. They're trying to protect their ego. They're trying to protect their lie. That's why they attack you when you're telling people the truth.
Right.
Just like reading a textbook to explain these things to you, when you're telling someone the truth, like we are on the podcast, and you're sharing this information so that people can see these patterns, you're attacked. They're trying to shut you up. They're trying to throw lawsuits at you. They're trying whatever they can do because they don't want this information getting out because you're spot on.
Right.
They don't want you calling it out because you see the truth. They try to shut it down. They don't want you reading the textbooks. They don't want you to be aware. Because when you're aware and you have control over yourself, they don't have control. And last, you need to acknowledge that anger that is justified, the grief of what you never had and what you may never have with this person. And the sadness that come along with all of these things, they're all normal and you're allowed to feel it all. And you should work through what you're feeling and understand that that's normal. That's part of the human experience. And if you've been scapegoated, you didn't deserve to be treated like this. And also, it's your job to become aware and don't continue passing it on as well. So in closing, I encourage our listeners to stop trying to earn humanity from those who refuse to offer it. If this episode hit home for you, subscribe, share it with someone who gets it, and leave a quick review. It helps more ADHD scapegoats find their way here. And if you're ready to dive deeper into your healing, check out my ADHD with Angie coaching program or reach out via direct message. You don't have to do this alone. You're not the problem. Till next time.